I'm going to be showing you how I make my roasted potatoes. To start with, I start with freshly peeled potatoes soaked in water to prevent them from browning. So I'm going to be cutting those potatoes into bite sizes. I'm going to try and get them as equally cut as possible. And this is how I do it. So I cut them in halves and then cut those in their halves so that they can cook evenly. I am placing them in another water again, in another pot of water, which is actually the pot I'm going to use to cook them in. After cutting them, I'm going to just season it with salt. Just seasoning it with salt. And then I'll stir it with a spoon just so that the salt can go to the bottom of the pot and mix a little bit more through the water, so that it just doesn't stay at on the potatoes at the top. So I'm mixing and then putting it on the stove and letting it boil for about 10 to 15 minutes, just enough for it to cook through. Not completely through, but about halfway through. Now I'm straining the water away and staying with just the potatoes. As you can see, they're not fully cooked. So I'm going to test the texture with my fork to ensure that they're not too soft or too hard. I'll transfer them into a bowl. Into this bowl, I'm going to add my extra seasoning. I'm going to be using celery salt. So before using that, I'm going to just test to make sure that the salt has gone through the potatoes and it is not too much, because the seasoning I'm using contains salt. So I'm just sprinkling the seasoning over the potatoes. And then I'm just mixing it up so that the seasoning goes and coats all the potatoes evenly. To that, I'm going to add melted butter. And then I will stir the butter in and make sure it coats all of the potatoes. So I'll be stirring and stirring, going up, down, sideways, trying to scrub all the butter that could be stuck on the bowl, just to make sure that every single potato is coated with butter, because this is what will give our potatoes that beautiful golden brown look that we are looking for, and also a very rich taste. So we have to really stir in the butter as much as we can. If you're not able to toss it like I am doing, just stir in with your spoon or whatever you choose to use. I prefer the tool that I'm using because it allows me to go through the potatoes without mushing them. So now I'm going to be transferring these potatoes into a baking tray. Whichever baking tray of your choice is fine, and this is the one I prefer to use for mine. I'm transferring to a baking tray. As you can see, why I love to use my tool is that it helps me take all of the batter that could have stayed in the bowl, so we are not wasting anything. We are using all of that juicy batter back into our potatoes and mixing it before putting it in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 more minutes. So there we are, just trying to place our potatoes on our baking pan as evenly as possible so they're not overlapping too much. Now, when they're roasting, you have to just turn them a bit, and this is how they look when they get out. Once they are out, so I'm going to add some more seasoning. I'm adding paprika, smoked paprika to be specific, to the potatoes. And then I will be adding parsley to the potatoes. I love parsley on potatoes. The taste it gives is just delicious. After this, I'm going to mix all of the mixture, just making sure again we are coating all of the potatoes with the seasoning as much as possible. Then we'll put it back in the oven. But at this time, when I'm going to turn the oven back on, we'll leave it off and let it cook with the residue heat that was left from baking it first time around. So we're just mixing it before putting it back in the oven, just to sit in the residue heat and get the spices into the potatoes, on top of the potatoes, and also just caramelize the potatoes and give us that golden roasted potato color that we want. So the paprika does help with that because of the color. So there we go. Putting it back into the oven, and 5 minutes later we have our potatoes done. And look at that beautiful, delicious goodness. This is how they do come out at the end of it all. They are beautiful, they are brown, they are delicious. And let's have our little tester test them. I think she approves. I have a really picky daughter, so when I do find something that she loves, I'm excited. And she really loved these potatoes, as you can see. If you'd like to see more videos like these ones, kindly subscribe, and thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.